want to thank you for having me. As you could hear from my background, I've spoken at hundreds of conferences in finance. But I have to say this is a very different group. There is a palpable community, and I want to thank you for letting me, a new person, be part of your community. I'm going to tell you a little story today about the evolution of investing. My partners and I, they couldn't be here, unfortunately, because they couldn't get visas. They're Russians, which I hope also will change in our global community going forward. But we believe that the financial markets have evolved to a place where we can now see that an algorithm, a trading robot that executes a strategy by itself, is where we are headed in terms of investment. I'm going to tell you a story about the history of financial innovations. I'm going to speak relatively quickly because I have little time. I'm going to talk about this innovation that I just spoke about, tell you about our stories, and then tell you how we think we are going to be able to help bring this very interesting and valuable product to the world. The history of financial markets is a history of evolution. In 1602, the first public company appeared, and over time there have been many, many meaningful innovations in this. Some of these have taken an awfully long time to be realized. You'll probably be surprised to hear that the U.S. market, the largest securities market in the world, went from 1/8 of a cent in terms of the minimum spread to decimalization in the year 2000. Think about that. For many, many years, whatever happened, whoever was on the other side of the trade, and it was usually a big financial institution, they got 1/8 of a cent. Now they might get 1/10 of a cent or 100th of a cent. It's a huge innovation and very important. The first hedge fund, Andrew Winslow Jones, in 1949, added leverage and short selling to his portfolio. But it took almost 50 years for most of the investment world to understand what is a hedge fund and where is its value. And we've seen many of these things over time coming through. ETFs appeared in 1993 when S&P issued the SPDR token. But as you know, ETFs now, they're like mushrooms after rain. There's a whiskey token coming out soon, ETF coming out soon. And one of the things that's interesting for us is to understand what is the driving factor between an innovation actually appearing on the market and it actually becoming something that's a reality for most of the investment community. When we look at this, we see a number of drivers of market innovation. One is better information to the investment community. One is better tools that help you understand what's happening. Bloomberg is a perfect example of a hugely transformative technology that allows those who can afford to pay for it a way to see a lot of things about the market that we were blind to unless we were sitting at Salomon Brothers, where Bloomberg came from, or Goldman Sachs. There's a popularization element, right? As markets grow, people look to serve those markets. Lower cost is a huge part of what drives innovation in the financial markets. And one of the things that's most important to us is better incentives, things that match people who are able to provide services with the opportunity to make money because they can provide those services. In a highly intermediated market like the public financial markets, very often those incentives never reach the people who have really good ideas and the ability to execute them. Less dependence on intermediaries and specialization is a huge part of this as well. We look at the way this market growth grows as something that flows from innovators, the people who have the idea at first, and generally realize it for their own use. Then we have early adopters, who are critically important. They're dancing, right? Then large institutions usually get the joke, and they start to commit resources to it. You go then on to the active traders, and finally the retail investor is given an opportunity to make investments, whether we're talking about emerging markets or electronic trading. All of these things are things that ultimately do get to investors, but not very fast sometimes. And just to give you an example, we've put a whole host of these ideas and where we think they are in this staging, this market staging. I leave it to you to decide where the crypto dot is. That's an argument I don't want to have. But as you can see, we believe the trading algorithms have just left the innovation stage and are now moving to the early adopters, and we would like to accelerate their presence in the wider market. The next innovation, as I've said, is trading algorithms. And if you're paying attention, you'll see that there are all kinds of signs pointing to this. LCH, which is part of the Rothschilds investment banking group, they put out a list every year of the 20 most successful funds historically. Last year, for the first time, 3 quant-driven funds entered that list. And that number will grow and grow and grow. As you can see, the amount of funds that are committed to systemic trading or other quant-driven, algorithmic-heavy strategies is also growing, and we expect this to grow. And there are reasons for this, and we'll talk about those in a few minutes. Goldman Sachs in 2000 had 600 traders. Now they have 2. And 200 computer engineers. They're using algorithms and other systemic strategies to replace people, because people have many disadvantages in financial markets and other investment opportunities, which we'll talk about as well. So we see this shift has already happened. We see that it's growing. But the problem with this shift is it's very hard to get an algorithm. It's very hard if you want to have an algorithm and you didn't happen to get a PhD in physics or math, it's very hard for you to be able to build them. And so we see, again, as we've seen with all of these innovations, domination by the bulge bracket banks, the other large institutions. And for the investor, who may be a crypto investor, maybe in other assets, they don't have any idea how they can do this. And we're going to change that. So that's the story of financial markets. My story and the story of my team began in Moscow, where in 1992 I moved, in part just to see what was happening. I learned Russian in college. And by a series of very strange coincidences, ended up running the largest brokerage in Moscow and helped set up the RTS trading system, which was based on NASDAQ, to build a market from nothing. And that experience is very, very similar to what I see in the current world, where you had assets which were not transparent, hard to value. The investment was driven by emotion. And now the Moscow market is one of the most advanced. The Moscow exchange is a world-class exchange. And when we talk about Russian enterprises, we talk about them in a way that says, how do they compare to other enterprises? And we can see in a fully transparent manner what's happening. Now, Moscow is also very good at creating traffic jams. And our story began when my partner, Roman, who is a very successful commercial real estate investor and service provider in Moscow, realized that no matter what happened, he was going to spend 3 or 4 hours a day in a car. And like many people in Moscow, he had a driver, and he decided, I need to make some use of my time. And as he made use of this time, he began trading, day trading. And he's very good at it. And 5 years later, he said, I don't understand, why does my trading have to stop? I know the strategy when I get out of the car and go to the meeting. And he started looking around and saying, why can't there be an investor product that would allow them to have their trading strategy expressed in an algorithm working for them when they can't work or be on the markets? And in the crypto markets, which are 24/7, there's almost no way you can be a good trader. But an algorithm can, because they don't sleep. One of the things we also learned is that most traders lose money. Now, they'll never tell you that, right? The fish is always this big, but they do lose money. And they lose money because they don't understand what they're investing in. They lose money because there's many tools out there, and they don't know how to use them or take advantage of them. And the most important reason they lose money is because they're human beings. And they get emotional, or they get attached, and these things all cause traders to lose money. And if any of you are active traders, I'm sure you have experienced all of these things. Algorithmic trading actually removes these problems by allowing knowledge to be accumulated and used by the creators of the algorithm. There's a whole host of tools that allow them to understand what's happening in the market historically and what is going to happen in the future, all kinds of signals, some of which are not economic, of course, and they remove emotions. But algorithm trading also brings a huge number of other advantages to people who are in the markets, and you can see these here. But the market for algorithmic trading is really a bad market. It's very bad at attracting capital, unless you're at Renaissance Technologies or d10e Shaw or Goldman Sachs. The platforms that are available to you, even if you have the chops and can go out there and set up algorithms, are pretty poor. And the reason for that is they're mostly driven by people trying to attract assets to a brokerage platform. There's a lack of transparency, so the guys who create algorithms and send them to Numerai and Quantopian, they don't know if they're being used. 98% of them get a thank you letter, we're not interested. And those that do get something from them generally make 5 or 10 grand. So there's no understanding for them what kind of value are they creating and how can they tap into it. And this leads to inefficient motivation, and there's a lot of garbage out there, especially in the collective investing space, eToro and so forth. And you might end up buying an algorithm that changes after you buy it. So we have created, over the last 4 years, a platform that allows creators, and we have 300 of them in the network, to come in and create algorithms. The algorithms that they create are tested in the environment, both by the creator and by us, because we don't want to put garbage out to our investment community. And investors will, after we finish building our marketplace, will be able to come in and participate in auctions to buy algorithms, which will send signals to their trading account, and that trading account will then perform based on the algorithms. We've already done a lot of the work. As you can see, the blue here is what we've gotten done, and one of the core competencies that we want to bring to this market is education. So we have a 10-hour course called Exchange Trading, which is in Russian but being translated now, which allows people who are very smart but may not understand how algorithmic trading works, may not understand how financial markets work, to get up to speed. And of the hundreds and hundreds of people who have taken this course, 300 are now producing algorithms for us. And we intend to do the same thing to educate investors, whether they be hedge funds, family offices, or individuals like yourselves. On the investor side, we're a little bit further behind. We really spent the time to build the algorithms, and like most things that it's easy to be proud of, we built that system for ourselves. My partners are really smart guys. They are unfortunately not here, as I said, but they built this so that they could have the strategies working for them. And then we realized everybody should have this opportunity. So what we're going to do, we use the blockchain to create auctions. So an algorithm creator can put any kind of algorithm he wants or she wants. That person can then say, this algorithm can handle $500,000 or Bitcoin or whatever of demand. It'll be for 6 months. Who wants to be involved? Everything is success fee based. If the algorithm doesn't work, you don't pay for it. And as people go along, the blockchain will make sure that we can tell you exactly what is the history of this algorithm creator, which is something that's absent from the market as well. And once that agreement is made, the blockchain will fix the algorithm, will fix the success fee deal. The signals will go again, as I said, onto your exchange, your brokerage account, and you'll end up with an algorithm that's trading for you, whether you're sleeping or looking over its shoulder. It won't matter. We believe that we have a huge market opportunity. One of my very close friends in one of the largest investment companies in the world has told me that they're convinced that the mutual fund industry will be replaced by algorithms, and we are too. We also believe that the crypto market, which we have refocused on, is a perfect market for this because you are all early adopters. You understand technology. You're not afraid. And we think that that's going to allow us to build this much faster. And right now, as we speak, we have algorithms working for some of our initial investors on Bittrex and Bitfinex as we speak. And that number will grow and grow and grow as we meet with Japanese creators and Indian creators and American creators and German creators. So we think that we're going to end up with basically an Uber that takes really smart, math-driven people who understand financial markets and allows them to attract capital to their strategies. And all of this will be transparent and on the blockchain. I'm here, and I'd really love to continue this conversation. If any of you want to speak, I'm here for the next 2 days, and I thank you for your attention.